I am Art, and I am here with you right here, right now. It is 9:24 a.m. Pacific Pacific Standard Time. Let's go with that. On the 27th of October, 2019. Let's make some art. Okay. What a week. What a week it's been. Another week heavy in Inktober. Another 7 crackerjack entries, and another one will be coming today. What am I going to do today on? Who knows? Who knows? But it'll be great. It'll be a lot of fun. It'll teach you. It'll teach me a little bit about myself as well. So yeah, last week has been kind of crazy. Lots of ups and downs. Yesterday was a down. It was dark. I suffered for my art, which makes me even more impressive, incredible. Good morning to Sarah Aldridge and Jen Kilchinman. Jen says, "How are you awake?" with an exclamation mark, playing fast and loose with grammar, which is great. Sunday morning, this is what I do. You know, I wouldn't want to disappoint my audience. I wouldn't want to disappoint my fans. I feel rough, certainly, but again, there's that direct line, I feel, between suffering and art. It's an example I've used before with young Leonardo di Caprio. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're here, Jen. Gosh. When making The Revenant, Leo suffered. And he had made some crackerjack films prior to Titanic, first and foremost, where he played someone very poor who could dance. I don't believe either of those things are actually true for Leo. So terrific acting. Did they give him an Oscar? Absolutely not, because they said, "Leo, my boy, you need to suffer. Leo, my boy, you need to suffer." Suffer he did. He got very cold and he ate some raw fish, got inside a disgusting deer or something. I don't know. It was a while ago since I've seen the film. But then they said, "You suffered, Oscar." So what I do every morning, every Sunday morning, and those of you around the rest of the world won't necessarily understand this because of time differences, but it's before 9:30 on a Sunday. I would only be up this early if I were going to church. And so this is maybe kind of my church. I've often thought that the reason church is so early on a Sunday is to punish people, to say, "Hey, JC," meaning Jesus, he suffered. You need to suffer as well. Sure, it's not, you know, getting beaten up for being who you are, but, you know, get up early on a Sunday. Come on, you lazy socks. What am I talking about? Okay, so this week, what are we doing? What are we doing? Artist of the week. Should we do artist of the week? Let's do artist of the week. Artist of the week is an interesting one. It's I always feel as though rebounding as an artist is very important. Many artists have put out something terrible. So they and you would say, "Oh, are they just going to give up at that point?" No, a great artist, after doing something terrible, will force themselves to do something wonderful. That's when you can tell who the great artist is. That's when you can tell. Okay. Going back to Leo, what's something terrible that he's done? I mean, he's always, you know, he's kind of knocking it out of the park on the reg. He did that film where he was the old man who invented the planes, and it was real long, and people said, "This is too long, Leo. This is too long." and it's not that interesting. And it's, you've got lots of other famous people in it to try and bolster interest, but it's not that interesting. And it just, every time you think it's finished, it just keeps going. And then he said, okay, can I do that suffering thing now? And they said, yes, Oscar. Okay. So this week's Artist of the Week is a pair of people who did something terrible last week and then came back this week and did the right thing. So that's the preface to it. The Artists of the Week are, of course, Paul Hollywood and Prue Leith. So this is a Great British Bake Off / baking show. They're the judges on it, and they have to eliminate someone each week, as is the format for most reality TV shows. The last week they got rid of a chap called Henry, who was by far and away the best person on that show. They got rid of him. It was a terrible mistake. Terrible mistake. He did a pretty good signature, struggled in the technical, and his showstopper wasn't bad. So the fact that they got rid of him just says that it's yet another bit of bias against straight, white, heterosexual men. They've suffered long enough. We suffered long enough. And I'm a little bit sick and tired that this is the last, group of people that it's socially acceptable to victimize. But then credit to them this week, they came back and they got rid of Rosie. Spoiler alert it's Friday, so if you really wanted to know, you would have known by now anyway. They got rid of Rosie. She was just head and shoulders below the rest, as if she was doing a handstand. Head and shoulders below the rest. And she was such a posho as well. Can't stand those guys. Can't stand them. Sarah Aldridge, not a fan of Romeo and Juliet, going back to the Leonardo DiCaprio. Yeah, a lot of people aren't. But that, can I just say, is a perfect segue to this week's Q&A. So it's another email that I wrote down. There it is. I wrote it down. It's from a guy called Keith Love, which is a great name. And Keith asks, people think I'm dumb. It's not a question, but thank you anyway, Keith. What is your favorite Shakespeare play? So I can say it's my favorite Shakespeare play when people ask, and people will think I'm clever. Well, first and foremost, Keith, don't stress so hard on people thinking that you're dumb, okay? Don't think about that. Emma C. Tan agrees about Rosie. Thank you very much. We will, we're going to fight this injustice. Prue and Paul came back, and they said, you know what? We made a mistake last week. We're back on it this week. That's great art. Artist of the Week. Going back to Keith. Keith, don't stress so much about people thinking that you're clever. If you know you're clever, that's really how you can determine that's where your self-worth comes from. It comes from self-worth, self. If you think you're clever, you are clever. That's the philosophy that I've always adopted. And for me, what you think, what's up here, not half as important as what's down here. I think I am I'm pretty clever, but I feel, yeah, that's where my strength comes from. That's where my power comes from. Yeah, I feel. And so if you feel, Keith, that you are clever, then you will be clever. And that goes for all of you idiots. Okay? But Shakespeare play. I obviously love all Shakespeare's. The Romeo and Juliet, as mentioned by Sarah. I'm not going to say Romeo and Juliet, just because that's the obvious one. And so people will think, well, you're just thinking of the film, which in these kind of circles, these kind of elitist Shakespeare reading circles, is not a good thing. So I'm going to go with a different one of the Shakespeare's. I know a lot of them. I've seen a lot of them, read a lot of them. For me, I was always a fan of growing up of King Arthur and tales of the Round Table, and Lancelot and Guinevere and Galahad, and the idea of these knights going out and saving the good guy. They're like superheroes, really. They're like superheroes. They're like gods. Anything mythology, anything mythological like that, nailed it, is something that I really can get on board with. I love kings, I love queens, I love princesses, I love knights. Okay, so for me, my favorite Shakespeare play would be Twelfth Night. Just for those same reasons, just swords and shields and chainmail. Love all that. So go with Twelfth Night. If I recall, it's probably fine. It's probably fine. So there you go, Keith. That is your question answered. If any of you guys wish to have your question answered, feel free to ask it now if you're watching now, or feel free to drop it in the comments later, or just send me an email. I am Notme, I am art@gmail.com, and I'll get to it next week. Thank you so much. So next week, what have we got? Gosh, just more flipping Inktober. Just more of it. Just keeps on going and it never ends. Except it does end next week, on whenever Halloween is. That's the last day, Inktober. So I will continue to do Inktober. I don't know how many that means there's left. So it'll be today that I've got to do after this. Gosh, on a Sunday, your man can never rest. So I've got to do the questions. Do you have time for them now? 11 minutes. Okay, I'm gonna do one of them, and then the other one can be saved for next week. Okay, so Emma or Sarah, what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw my clapperboard in the air, and then it's going to be like a large game of heads and tails. So heads will be this, and tails will be this. Okay, whichever one is the first of you to call heads or tails, just let me know, and then I'll flip it, and then I'll answer that question. The one who loses will get your question answered next week, because I don't want to drag these on too long. Okay, so heads and tails, Emma and Sarah, and the rest of us, I guess, are just going to have to wait. Anytime you want. Anytime you want. Anytime. Sarah says tails. Okay, Emma, you got to be quicker. Although that was still pretty slow from Sarah as well, so you've got no one to blame but yourself. Okay, so let's see how we're going to do with this. It's heads, Sarah. It's heads. And I would show you, but I mean, my bedroom is kind of a mess at the moment. So, well, there we go. Emma said heads anyway. And Emma, you win. So your question is, how would you feel about a possible future collaboration with musical artists Red Rooster Duo? Positive. I'm a collaborator by heart. I believe that something as powerful as my gift needs to be shared. It needs to be given to those less fortunate. And I've never heard of the Red Rooster Duo. I don't keep up with that much current music. Music did hit its peak in 1986. I think that's fairly clear. However, I would be very open to collaborating with them. Maybe I could do a music video. I've done a music video before, as you can all, as I'm sure you all know, as for a musical group called As You Meanie. It was a song called Could This Be Love? I did a music video. It was very, very powerful. So something like that I could definitely do. I don't know what other ways that I could, I mean, unless they're Seattle based, I don't think I could sing with them. although I do have some pretty primo pipes. But yes, to answer your question, Emma Seaton, I would feel positive about a possible future collaboration with musical artists Red Rooster Duo. And Sarah, what would be your signature pie? You're going to have to wait till next week. Tenterhooks, I'm sure you will be, as all of you will be. So that was a live update. I gotta grab the thing because it went. That is this weekly update. It's kind of smushed off a little bit, isn't it? Oh no, it's just need to get it in the right light. So that was a live update from the 27th of October 2019. Thank you so much, all of you who watched live. Thank you also those who are watching subsequently. Again, remember to follow me on Facebook, to follow me on Instagram, instagram.com/I am not me, I am art. I do a lot of stories on there, some of which asking questions. I asked a question this week on whenever it was I've lost track of the days, for Dark, because I was having trouble with it. And I asked the question, and I asked people to tell me some things to get me in the right headspace, something dark and miserable. And only one person replied to it. It was a young lady from Australia, and she said simply, pedophiles. And I just thought that was such a sweet thing for her to do. Not enough people responded to that. So please, facebook.com/I am not me, I am art. Instagram.com/I am not me, I am art. Respond to things as they are asked. It takes you like a second, honestly. I'm not going to ask that much of you guys, but please, the simple things. I'm tired. That was the Not Me update, 27th of October 2019. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a fantastically creative week.